Some Muslims say you can't criticize Muhammad for marrying Aisha at 6 because the Bible says Rebekah was only 3 when she married Isaac. But let's see if the Bible actually teaches that. The argument goes like this. In Genesis chapter 22, verses 20 through 23, right after Abraham almost sacrifices Isaac, we read that Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. Then in Genesis 23:1, Sarah dies at the age of 127. Since Sarah was 90 when Isaac was born, that means Isaac was 37 when his mother died. Fast forward to Genesis 24, Isaac marries Rebekah, and in Genesis 25:20, it says Isaac was 40 years old when they married. So some assume that Rebekah was born right at the time of Sarah's death, which would make her 3 years old when she married Isaac. But here's the problem. That assumption isn't in the text. Genesis 22 doesn't say Rebekah was just born. It simply lists her as part of Nahor's family line. Biblical genealogies often do that, summarizing family trees without exact birth timing. And the actual story of Genesis 24 shows Rebekah is clearly not a toddler. She runs to draw water, gives the servant a drink, and then waters all his camels, something that takes hours of physical labor. She then offers hospitality, shows discernment, and even makes her own decisions to leave her family and marry Isaac. That is the behavior of a young woman, not a 3-year-old child. So where does the 3-year-old claim really come from? It doesn't come from the Bible. It comes from a later Jewish writing called the Seder Olam Rabbah, which is written centuries after Genesis. That tradition tries to fit the timeline into a neat system, but it contradicts the plain meaning of the text. So the Bible itself never teaches that Rebekah was 3 years old. That claim comes from later rabbinic traditions, and it falls apart when you actually read Genesis in context. But let's just say for the sake of the argument that Isaac did marry Rebekah at 3 years old. Would that be a problem for Christians? The answer is no. Why? Because Christians are not called to live by the standard of Isaac. We're called to follow the perfect standard of Jesus Christ. Isaac, like every other Old Testament figure, was a sinner who needed redemption. That's very different from Islam. Muslims are required to follow Muhammad as the model for all time, including his marriage to Aisha at the age of 6. In Christianity, Jesus alone is our model, which means even hypothetical arguments about Isaac don't weaken the gospel. But Muhammad's actions are central for Muslims today.